The individual stories can be heartbreaking. The statistics are shocking. If you grow up in care in England, the chances of achieving your potential are significantly smaller than someone brought up by their parents.
A new report from a think tank, which aims to reduce poverty and inequality, says many local authorities are failing young people when they leave care, and more should be done to look after them. So let's take a look at some of the figures. 9,000 children leave care in England every year.
The Centre for Social Justice says that it's found that more than a fifth of all girls who leave care to become teenage mothers. That is 3 times the national average. And it says that 1 in 4 of the adult population, prison population, has been in care at some point in their life. So what can be done?
Well, let's put that question to Dr. Samantha Callan, Associate Director of the Centre for Social Justice, who carried out the research, and Regan Metcalf, who was in care herself, but now trains others to look after children in the system. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
And Regan, yours is sort of a classic story, really, of just how unsettled a childhood can be. How many times did you move?
50 plus,
50 plus.
Different services and agencies throughout my time within the care system.
Why so many?
Various reasons, a lot of bureaucracy, funding issues, emotional problems too, and specific placements that I needed to go to. I don't think you can really excuse the amount of placements I went through, and mine is by no means an isolated case.
And what was the impact on you personally?
Greatly. I think relationships were a particular difficulty. I think my attachment was difficult to form. The consistency I didn't really experience until I was ready to settle much later on. So the impact was great, yeah.
And Doctor, I suppose, you know, when Regan talks about being able to settle later on, just because a child leaves care and is deemed an adult, that doesn't mean the child, which has been in a certain environment, is ready for the outside world and still needs that interaction, that support, and that's what's not being given when you look at the statistics that we were just mentioning a few moments ago.
Absolutely, and what Regan has said has really backed up the research we did. We talked to well over 100 care leavers, many organisations that help them. We got information from over 100 local authorities on this issue. And the government does recognise this because they've set up something called staying put. You can stay with your foster care after a team, but 25% of care leavers aren't with foster carers, and they're often the most vulnerable who've experienced this constant churn that Regan's talking about.
Does there appear to be a need for a culture shift? Because I'm sure, you know, Regan, 50 homes, I don't know if that's typical. We would imagine it's not. We would hope it's not typical, but there are experiences of many children being moved around so much. There needs to be a shift, doesn't there? There needs to be a change in what's acceptable, what's seen as acceptable.
I think you're absolutely right, because I think relationships should be the super priority, and it just doesn't seem to be at this point. You know, all children need safe, stable and nurturing relationships to thrive. So much more children who've been taken away from their birth families, and when we do take a child away, and often there are very good reasons for doing that, the state has to make sure that there's somebody there who, it says, for a child to surface, somebody somewhere has to be crazy about them, and that is possible. Third sector organisations, often even a teacher at school, and we've got to make the most of these relationships rather than just constantly shuffling children through a very bureaucratic system.
Regan, how did you survive?
How did I survive? Well, I stayed alive, and throughout my time, I had one very stable relationship with a lady who's actually one of the trustees of the Care Leavers Foundation, who we have developed the New Belongings project, and she actually was one of my carers in a children's home I lived in from being 13 onwards, and she always kept in contact with me, and I suppose her idea of hope that she had in me, at some point I began to believe. And if I could just add on the relationship side of things with residential care, I think that I don't think we need to revolutionise the system. I think the guidelines are there. I think the policies are there. For some reason, they're not being embedded into services. I think that there does need to be a responsibility of the government to become corporate parents, and their consciousness needs to change within that.
Well, the government says it has put lots more support in place for care leavers since the beginning of Parliament. I just saw your mouth twitch there when you heard that. I mean, tell us, is the evidence there of that extra care?
Well, as I say, they have introduced staying put, which is great, and I think Edward Timpson, Tim Lawton before him, a real conviction that this is a priority area. But we need the government to say to local authorities, right, we're going to start measuring you on things like how many of your girls are getting pregnant early, a massive indicator of wanting to build relationships around them. And also, in the States, they've started something called family finding and engagement, where they're looking for people like that lady who helped you years earlier, saying, who can we find in a child's past who was meaningful, and person-specific personal advisors.
One stable relationship, if you like.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, yeah. I'm afraid we do have to leave it there, but thank you both ever so much.
Thank
Very
you.
good. Thank you.